for Adam. Hi, Kyla. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I like your
Good.
background setup. It looks really
Thanks.
cool. You got a nice big piece of land in the back there. Very nice.
I do.
Where you can
Yeah,
touch grass and be part of nature. Beautiful.
correct. So
Um,
much grass touching.
yeah. So, how are you? How is life? How's the debate scene?
Um, Life is good.
Yeah.
Debate scene is the same as it always is, I think. I don't know. I haven't been debating too much. I've been doing a lot of Jubilee lately, which is just a very different
Yeah.
scene. Yeah, I mean, it's debate, but it's a very, very different style of debating. So,
That's
yeah.
interesting. May I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
Like Hollywood manifest is Jubilee? Because I feel like it comes off as kind of like the McDonald's of philosophy and politics, in that it seems very painted up and marketed to kind of hit people's dopamine, to get them hooked, hook them to want to watch a little longer, like the idea of like maximizing a brand towards doing well in the algorithm. How do you feel
Yes.
about that? That's kind of the perception I get from seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, they're the masters of virality for sure. They definitely know what audiences want to see, and they know that lots and lots of people on camera is just exciting.
Yeah,
I think they like also are aware that some of their shows come at the cost of like quality debates, so they try to introduce other shows like on the back of more popular shows. So they've got like the 1v1s or the middle
yeah,
grounds kind of balanced by the surroundeds because the surroundeds do crazy money and crazy views, but the quality of the discussion is usually not as good. And they're aware of that. I mean, their staff at least are very, very self-aware of what they are and what they are not,
right.
which is like they're trying their best to be a platform where debates and conversations start. Yeah, and I think they do a good job of that.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, I was curious to talk to someone about their experience. So you're going to be making your Pangburn stage debut in New York City against Pearl Davis. Highly anticipated by the Penguin community. A lot of people have been talking about it. You guys will be discussing things like the red pill phenomena, gender roles, politics in general. What's your general opinion and feel on Pearl? And what do you think you can? What positive things could you get out of a debate with Pearl?
Well, I've heard she's been taking debate classes, like somebody's teaching her.
Okay.
So that's exciting. I'm curious to see like I don't think she's the strongest debater typically. I think her like performance with Anna Kasparian was um not the strongest performance I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that maybe with debate courses under her belt, she'll be a little bit more confident and a little bit more comfortable. I think she's got some pretty tough positions because she's like further than even the trad wives. Like it's I don't know, it's tough. Her position seems to be women are bad, kind of no matter what they're doing, it's not good enough. So I'm curious to see if she's updated her positions at all with debate classes, because typically when you're going into debate, you not only want to have like an authentic opinion, but you also want a defensible opinion that has like some sort of merit. And I don't know the position can be just women are like ontologically evil. Like that's a pretty I think that's a really tough thing to argue, frankly. So you can definitely have criticisms of feminism because if feminism is bad or like, modern movements, like it's more narrow in scope. But yeah, I'm curious to see if she's moved to more focusing on feminism specifically. I think that's going to be a stronger position for her if she narrows her scope of what she's critical of.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. I'm really looking forward to that conversation. When you go in to a dialectic, what are the principles that you think are good principles that you bring into a conversation? The kind of your minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. Mine are good faith and helpfulness. But what are yours? What are the things you want to see in that battleground?
Yeah, I mean, the best debates are two good faith opponents who really strongly disagree. I think my debate with Trent Horn is one of my more recent ones. That was like one of my favorite debates I've done in years because he's a talented debater. He's very capable. Nobody would poo-poo at Trent Horn and say that he's not good at what he does, whether you agree or disagree with him. Even in the liberal space, he's actually quite respected as like a good debater. Like people are like, oh yeah, he's a tough opponent. But we got along really well, and I think we both like. I don't want to speak too much because I don't want to like criticize other people inadvertently. But yeah, I think we both approached it very good faith. There's a couple moments where like I think both of us like wanted to slip into being sneaky. I think there's a couple of moments where I was like, well, hold on, like why are you doing that thing? But for the most part, it was just a really good faith conversation. And as a result, like I walked away being reminded of like why I love dialogue. So that was super fun. I don't actually like this blood sports like where the goal is to like trip up your opponent on any side. I think that there's like secular atheists who do this in kind of like the debate fill space. Yes. And I think that there's now like a branch of the Eastern Orthodox guys who do this. I think the skeptics did it. I actually think like Christopher Hutchins did it a little bit. I don't like it. Like I'm not here to win because my side is better. I'm here to like wrestle the best ideas. And obviously I understand that in a media format, that's just not always going to happen. But yeah, I think good faith and like a genuine willingness to engage with the substance of the idea, first and foremost, is what leads to the best conversations.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you have a moral duty in a debate or a discussion to give your full moral consideration to your interlocutor in the sense of what you would consider good behavior, righteous behavior? Do you think it's important that you embody that even if you strongly disagree? Like if your interlocutor holds ideas that you detest, do you think they're still owed your moral consideration?
It depends on what you mean by owed your moral consideration. Like, do you think that you should like view them as another human being that shouldn't be like murdered for their opinions? Yeah, obviously. Right. But I think there's this tense reality that like, while everyone would just love for conversations to be calm and peaceful and Socratic, we also recognize that these conversations, especially that are happening on huge platforms and whatnot, like can have some level of real world effect, right? Like they do work to move the population's opinion on certain topics. And the population isn't necessarily sufficiently informed enough on any single topic you're discussing or on how like debate and rhetoric work to expertly navigate if you, for example, are dealing with a good faith interlocutor who's against a bad faith interlocutor, right? That's like the worst type of situation where if you have a really good faith interlocutor, I think of my friend Eucharist, he's got a PhD in political science. He's like notoriously good faith. And if he debates anyone who is bad faith, they'll just use kind of like little cheat tactics by like shifting frame and like shifting the goalpost like consistently and slowly over time to like defend a new position that feels stronger. So like moral consideration, it depends on what you mean by that. But I don't know, I'm very much of the view like in all ways, in all life, you should be like, what is the verse? Like the meek shall inherit the earth, with the idea of like a soldier with his sword sheathed. Like as much as possible, it should stay sheathed. But there are certain individuals or certain times and places that like you have to have a full backbone against and like not just be polite society towards, I always say like Hitler would have killed Gandhi, and that's important to remember.
Yeah. Backbone. Great. A more specific question related to this would be, how do you feel about bullying in the dialectic in debates? Is that something that you would use as a tactic to try to dominate a conversation, or if that happens to you, how would you feel about that? And you could also talk to, do you find that in this world of debate that there are attempts to bully you into submission, not necessarily by rhetoric or logic, but by just over talking you, talking down to you, attacking you personally? What do you think about bullying in the dialectic?
Yeah, I kind of, we have this saying in my server, every single person who's debated for long enough has been, excuse my language, what we say, everyone who's debated for long enough has been debate raped before, where essentially like somebody just rolls into the conversation. You can tell maybe they got bullied in high school, something's going on, and now they're using debate as like a means to like just try to ram their fist down your throat as hard and as quickly as possible. And you can tell that this person has no interest in substance at all. They are only interested in humiliating you as aggressively and as quickly as possible. Like this is unquestionable that this exists. And I want to be very clear. I think a lot of people, when they think of this, they'll quickly criticize like Andrew Wilson. I do think that he literally trains people in kind of like debate bullying, essentially. There is a time and place to be mean, right? I'm not opposed to meanness. I think that the idea that debate must be like this gentleman's sport where we all like, we clap with one hand and we sip our tea, I think loses all of like the passion and ferocity that like make these ideas so captivating.
What you just described reminds me of North Korea, when people say, the debate should be like the soft clap. Everyone should be in formal attire, suit and tie, black pencil skirt. I start thinking like this is some kind of cult religious like thing that I feel it lacks a lot of humanity. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of that either. And yeah, I've heard this about Andrew Wilson from other people. I've watched some of your discussion with Andrew Wilson, and I think there were moments that he did try to bully you into
for sure
submission, and I think you handled it very well. And one of the things I wanted to say is that when we're met with this in the dialectic, I think it's best not to let the bullies, wrongdoers, people acting poorly, to drag us into this kind of bloodlust, blood sport, back and forth, attacking the person and not the argument kind of thing. And I think you have an ability to handle that really well. And I think when I run my Pangburn virtue scorecard on you, you score very, very high for patience in comparison to many other people who are in the debate world. So it seems to me that you embody the virtue of patience as kind of an
it's just called dissociation.
Archetype. Yeah. Disassociation.
Yeah, it's just dissociation.
You just fade off into some like blissful zone while this stuff is happening.
My safe space in my head, yeah.
And this does bring me to this idea of values and value making. What is your opinion on where your values are fundamentally coming from?
What is my opinion, on where my values are coming from?
Just your values in general. You've outlined you've outlined dialectical values. You've outlined some ethical values already here today. Where do you think those things are emerging from?
So I'm a divine command theorist, right? So I think God is God and God gets to decide everything, including what's good. And we can use things like, I'm also a Thomist, right? So I would say you can use logic and reason and science to try to arrive towards what God says is good by a collection of different things, but one of them being the faculties that he's given you, right? I don't think that God is a deceiver. So that's what I am. But if you watch me debate people, I actually operate, and I would say I basically function like a contextualist. So if you'll notice, part of the good faithedness that I think people know me for is I tend to just grant people's presuppositions about the world, right? So if I'm debating a secular person, I'll just argue in their worldview that assume that God isn't true. Is this reasonable? And I'll interrogate them based on their worldview. I typically won't interrogate people based on my worldview. So
like an internal critique you're talking about.
Well, you can internally critique without being a contextualist. I internally critique insofar as some people will internally critique to be aren't you kind of stupid to be a subjectivist or something like that? I don't really do that shit because, as somebody mentioned in the side chat, I've made peace with Agrippa's trilemma. I think none of us touch integrity, and that's fine. So I'm not here to be my system is fucking better than yours and it wrecks your ass. Like, I just feel like that's being like, my daddy can bench 315 and your daddy can only bench 3. I just think it's like stupid. I'm not interested in those conversations. I'll just grant your presuppositions. If you say, I don't think there's a God, it's all chaos and we are predetermined and I'm a determinist, I'll just grant that. And then when you say certain things like, yeah, and these people are objectively wrong, I'll go, well, hold on. First of all, why are they wrong at all? You're a determinist. Second of all, what do you mean by objective here, right? So like I typically just grant if X, then Y. So I tend to be a contextualist debater.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So just back to the values a little bit. So you think that, there's God determines what's good. Now,
Yeah.
how do you get from you as a human being to, the goodness of your debate principles, and then someone else will have different debate principles, and then you're going to say, well, I think mine are good or better. No?
I almost never am interested in those.
Okay.
In those conversations, the only time when I'm going to outline that like my moral system is better is when I think that their moral system is like illogical, right? So like, because you can have you can believe in moral subjectivity. You can be an anti-realist and be really logical, right? And be really logically consistent. Sure. And if you don't recognize that people can have different presuppositions about the world and be logical, you probably just need to study more Phil, right? There's like deeply respected fields of foundationalism and coherentism. So I probably wouldn't, I don't typically approach somebody who I think is equally logical, but they just happen to be a subjectivist and go, well, my system's better than your system. That's empty. Like we all fail Agrippa's trilemma. They're going to do circular reasoning. I'm going to do dogmatism, whatever. It's all the same to me. More so what I'm going to do is I'm going to base what they say, they rank their values, because the subjectivist still has a logical system, and I'll come to understand how they might be like a contractualist, right? So I'll come to understand how they think about the world, and to say that they're a contractualist, but they hold a bunch of views that to me seem necessarily counter to their moral system, then I'm going to hold them in tension against those things. I'm much more interested in finding people where they're maybe hypocritical or maybe not walking their own moral system to the end of it, right? So like if I'm going to find somebody's moral system illogical, that's where it'll look like maybe I'm saying like my system's better. But I think when you watch me debate, I very rarely advocate for my system. Like I don't really care if people have my system or not, like at all. I just want people to live better lives, and I think you can live better lives with multiple systems. So right. The main thing you'll see me do is challenge the logic of another person's system if I think that they're failing it.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of that too. Like I want to make sure systems are at least rationally coherent before we start arguing about let's say what metrics should be made primary. You mentioned you want to see people live better lives. What is a better life, or what is the good life?
I think like living, treating others better, having flourishing, having meaning, and having joy. And I think joy is found dominantly in humans through connection and relationship. And I think when we live in connection and in relationship and have joy and less anger and less anxiety, we tend to act more ethically. And by ethically, I mean by my standard, obviously.
And
I just think most people agree with my standard, right? Like just very few people are my standard.
And just to be clear, you just outlined your standard there, right? By flourishing, you would mean like I use well-being, physical, mental, and social health. Do you agree that those are good metrics for flourishing?
Yeah, sure. They're vague, but sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I use physical, mental, and social health is because there are facts about physical, mental, and social health. We rely on some of our highest schools of learning to best model those facts so we can, help people when their physical, mental, and social health is failing in hospitals and through doctoral care. But I'm often curious to hear if people do have objections to these things. Sometimes people will object and say, well, scientific modeling changes. And I think that's the strength of it. Um, yeah, I am curious. Do you? How did you come to believe in God? What's the history there?
I kind of always like to joke that the church almost made me walk away from my faith, and evolutionary science walked me back to it.
And
I think
okay,
I came to believe in God in the way that most people meaningfully do, which is through personal experience, like fundamentally.
okay. Do you want to share that personal experience, or is that a private?
I don't share them publicly, no.
Okay, very interesting. Now, epistemically, um, how would you lay out your way of knowing your epistemology?
Sorry, what do you mean?
How do you articulate that? How do you articulate your way of knowing?
I'm probably like a foundationalist. I'm not totally sure which branch of epistemology I fall into, but probably, I mean, everyone's mostly a foundationalist if you don't know. So
Yeah.
probably foundationalism, like build it. Like I said, I'm kind of like a Thomist, which I think
Okay.
Thomism is not perfectly one-to-one with foundationalism, but that sort of idea. You build from one observation and then you can build further observations from that
And
Cartesian idea of I think, therefore I
okay.
am,
And to
that
break
good
that
stuff.
down a little bit, um, I actually might want to ask you about the cogito as well, just because uh, that gets to a gripe I have with regards to possibilities and impossibilities. But with regards to truth in your epistemology, how do you articulate what kinds of criteria of truth you rely on?
Mm, I'm not sure.
Okay. When it comes to like correspondence criteria, that will inform things like empiricism and uh, using
Yeah, it's probably
science as
something
a
like
way of knowing.
science and stuff.
Okay,
Like I
yeah,
said,
yeah,
I'm really an
fantastic.
amateur in philosophy. Like
Yeah.
I have some of my ideas, but like I haven't finished all. I'm not sure.
Oh,
I'm
okay. Yeah,
also
yeah.
a big non-analytical Phil bro. I really don't like it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're
What?
getting into analytical Phil stuff, I'm going to start just being like, no, no, I'm more of like a continental guy.
Yeah. What makes you continental?
The magic inside of it.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
actually like a lot of I think a lot of the stuff born of continental philosophy, especially the uh, like German romanticism, is that there's a lot of beautiful existential poetry born out of uh, that world of philosophy. As
Yeah, I
an
think beauty
Yeah,
is the key piece. That's what I kind of
yeah,
qualify as magic. It's like this hard to define thing that's just quite perfect in such a way, and it resonates in people's souls over time in such a powerful way is beauty. And I think that continental has it. Not that I'm opposed to analytical Phil. It's just like if you're getting into like deep analytical questions about shit and stuff, and it's like turning philosophy almost into like science, I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm not that deep into it. No idea. I'm
yeah.
not an expert.
Fair enough. I'm very curious at what stage people are at with regards to being able to articulate precisely how they go about knowing things, and applied ethics, like we talked a little bit about your ethical standards. How would you articulate something like, if there is an old lady on the street who has fallen over with her grocery bag, like why is it good in your view, or righteous in your view, to help them up?
I'd say it's supererogatory.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's not bad to not.
Okay. Yeah. So I would disagree with you there. I think it would be bad and wrongful to leave the old lady on the ground. And my standard would be, I would just pull from my moral quest that we ought be maximizing well-being for ourselves and those around us if we're to call ourselves living the good life. And that
Yeah, but then you're crushing your soul like every Christian purist, which says that if it's not maximally good at all times, then are you really doing anything good? And it's like, no, like there's lots of neutral stuff. Like there's
yeah,
lots of neutral stuff and then there's good stuff. And we should make sure to ensure that the good stuff is known as particularly good because then people are inclined to want to do it, right? If it's just expected and it's not actually supererogatory, I think there's less incentive to do it. And I think like the reality is it is supererogatory. Like she can probably just get up on her own and be fine, right? And it's pretty super, but if you go out of your way to help her, she'd probably really appreciate that. And that's really nice. And you should be
yeah,
deeply praised for that. Whereas if it's just the minimum basic requirement to be good, well, now so few things in this world are good. And what a tragedy that would be.
yeah. I mean, there are a lot of bad things and wrongful things in this world, but I don't think I would fall into that same Christian trap you just outlined. I think it would be simply the right thing to do to offer help, because I'm a Humean sentimentalist, and I think all of our value making is born of our sentiments, and I think cognitive science plays that out as well. When human beings are selecting values, these are good, these are bad values, and I just feel strongly that people should argue for a world where we are helping, old ladies up off the ground.
Well, I'm arguing for that world too. I'm just rewarding it more. I'm arguing for that world too. I'm just rewarding it more.
Okay, I was under the impression you said we shouldn't.
No, it's derogatory. It's especially good. It's like you're going from like I'm just a guy to being like you're like kind of one of the best people around, at least, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. Like if we put this on like a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the most maximally good somebody can be in any given instance, which is probably untouchable by most people, right? It's that Aristotelian perfect time, perfect place, perfect person, whatever. And like that lady falls over, and helping her out is like I'm categorizing it as like an 8. I'm like that's a really good thing to do, and people should want to do that thing, right? Okay. I think people can exist at a 5 and it's tolerable. They're just like neutral. So if you don't do that 8 thing, doesn't mean you're bad, you're just neutral. But if you like walk up to the lady and push her and like make her fall down worse, okay, now you're like, you're like the 3, okay, which I'm categorizing vaguely as negative. Whereas it seems like for you, you're saying if you're not at an 8, you're bad. And I'm saying, well, below 5 is bad, Well, that's all I'm saying. And I think there's more beauty in allowing things to be good, supererogatory things to be not just good of necessity, but supererogatorily good. You are doing something special in this moment, and people should notice you for it because it is uniquely good. And I think my world makes people more incentivized to do it. More Mother Teresa's.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's made bad in my worldview to avoid helping the woman because there is an opportunity to maximize well-being, and the question would be, well, why is the person not helping? That matters. It matters if, well, I mean, my soccer game's on and I want to get in and watch TV. So yeah, I mean, sounds like we
there's some intentions. You're right. There are some intentions that would drop people maybe below 5. Like maybe this person is like, oh, it's a black old woman, so I'm not going to help her because I really fucking hate black people and I don't want to touch them. I would agree. That person is no longer 5. Now they're like -4, negative. They're in like the 4-3, which is like my bad category.
Right. So I guess you would consider yourself someone who believes in like objectively true wrongful things and right things in the world.
Yeah, I'm like a moral objectivist.
Yeah. And how does that work practically? Like if you and I, for example, just disagreed on, whether it's bad fundamentally to just walk away from the grandmother who's fallen over with her grocery bag, if you're able to help them, how would you go about dealing with a moral dispute like that? Because I think it's important that the war of ideas includes what's more righteous or what's more good in situations like this. So if I was to say
what we did right now would be my answer. Like we do it through like logic and reason, like for the most part. Like I don't even know if like moral objectivity and subjectivity have to come into it necessarily. It can, like if we want to just like be autistic Phil bros, we can do that. But it's like mostly I'm going to use practical logic and reason, right? Like we kind of did here, where I'm saying, well, I think the thing that you're saying, where it's like the minimum, now makes it so that the good starts at like pretty pretty good behavior, and then everything below that implies that it's bad. And I think that that makes for a less beautiful world, which is why I make a lot of space for neutral as well. And I call anything that's good supererogatorily good. And I think we should strive for it, right? So I like use my logic and reason to argue as to why the way that I'm viewing it's good, because we're both agreeing it's a good thing to do. I'm just arguing, the scale of which, whether it's exceptionally good or the minimum of good, I think is the main area we're disagreeing. And we would use like practical logic and reason.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it sounds like you use science as a way of knowing, which I think is healthy epistemology.
We love science here.
Yeah, good. And you studied psych, is that right?
Yeah, I have a neuroscience and clinical, like forensic background.
Okay, cool. And what are some insights from neuroscience? Let's say, what are the things about neuroscience that excite you the most?
Oh, it's kind of like the frontier. It's like the unknown frontier. I think it's the same reason maybe that certain people get excited by the ocean or by space. It's very unknown. The brain is so hard to understand. It is just such an incredible organ that it's unlike any organ. And then our organ is the most unique brain on the planet right now. So it's just, there's really so many frontiers of neuroscience just beginning to burgeon in an area that I think really matters, right? Mental health is a huge plague on society. It's really harmful. And it's really hard to solve because traditional medical approaches have some answers, but certainly not the answers, all of the answers we would hope, even just insofar as like biomarkers, for example. So neuroscience, I have like a weird penchant for, I don't know if you've ever heard of like photogenetic neuroscientific research, but it's looking at putting like chlorophyll cells and chloroblasts in the brains of mice, like in mice brain cells, and then turning those brain parts on or off with with light, which is really cool. It's like really interesting science. So yeah,
tell me
I don't
more.
know the utility, but yeah.
Tell me more about that. Like, what are the reasons we are doing this? What maybe frontier are we trying to open by these injections?
That's the beauty of these like unknown frontiers is I feel like basic science gets to happen a lot. And if you're familiar with basic versus applied, right? Basic is kind of just like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks and why, right? It's like, it's kind of the purest form of science. It's like science whimsy. Whereas applied science has like a goal. It's trying to utilize science for some purposeful outcome, which is amazing. And I love that too. But there's something really beautiful. Like, what's the point of photogenetic? I don't know. We've turned on fear centers in mice on and off, but also like, it's not very useful yet because we can't use that on humans because the mice skulls have to remain open so photons can be blasted. So it's like, I don't know, but it's cool. It's really interesting. It's weird. We've learned a lot about like how we can utilize certain like CRISPR technologies onto brain cells and the effects of these things. And they're helping us in increasing specificity of CRISPR, for example, as we target, we want to target this part of the brain of a mouse. So, and we have to do this in vitro, right? So how do we genetically modify what will later become the dominant fear center of the mouse in so much so that those cells have the necessary chloroplast when we turn lights on or off, it turns on or off those cells' ability to function, right? And it's like, is that useful? I don't know. It's really fucking cool though. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can hear the vegans out there screaming at the screen.
Sure. Yeah.
Using these mice. So yeah, CRISPR. I think CRISPR and different forms of gene editing are going to open up this new frontier of moral discussion. What genetic rights should the unborn have? For example, would you think that this would be a bad thing to do for governments to start dictating, let's say, by way of democracy, the way democracy works, but we start seeing legislation come into play where all unborn must, or all have the right to have all cancer genetics or potentiality removed from their genetic makeup, regardless of what the carrying mother or father thinks about this. So when we start looking at how this would be applied, like the practice of this, I don't know. But as a general thought, because in our community we've been having conversations about the morality of gene editing, what do you think about that? Are you someone who tends to lean strongly towards the rights of the unborn, or are you generally more focused on the rights of the carrying mother, or how do you feel about that?
I don't know. I'm so Aristotelian. Both matter. It's just they matter in different quantities based on like time and point, right? Like I think as the fetus is earlier on, and it's like not like the future like ours argument isn't overly compelling to me. I really only care about present selves when it comes like in the case of a fetus, right? Until it has a current self, I don't really care about it. We don't know when that current self exists, but up until the point where it doesn't have a current self, I'm just not sure that having high levels of moral consideration are super valuable necessarily. They have some moral consideration in the way that like non-human beings should have more moral consideration than even our world gives them right now, right? I think factory farming is a good example of like our failure to consider non-human beings. But I essentially kind of consider it somewhat similar morally to like a non-human being up until a certain point, probably around like 15 weeks. And then after that point, I think it has increasing like human rights. And so does it have the right to have its cancer cells fully like removed and stuff like that? Again, I'm assuming that this is a magic wand version where like only the cancer cells are removed and there's no negative sequelae. Mm-hmm. That's probably a good thing to do, right? It's also really hard to imagine a parent who'd be opposed to that, other than for like probably like what I would view as like harmful religious reasons or something like that, right? Like it's like imagining a mother, which does exist, right? There are parents who want to deny blood transfusions to their children for religious reasons. I think we mostly view those parents as abusive, and I think that we probably should. A parent should probably want like the physical integrity of their child to be like set on the best possible pathway. So I definitely lean towards like at some point, once we decide when a person begins, then they should have weighty genetic consideration for sure. I think before then I'm more loose.
Yeah, but before then is where I see this new frontier opening, because I could see a situation where we find out that, before, let's say, conscious experience becomes plausible, maybe around the 22, 24 week mark. That's when we have to get ahead of some of this gene editing. And then maybe eventually we get to, right at conception, we need to make decisions genetically about these particular issues and how people would think about, people who want to go all natural with the, with the process, and where people might fight for rights of the unborn at the earliest stages, and then we start seeing parallels to the abortion issue and whatnot. But I do think it's an interesting domain of kind of new age ethics.
Yeah, like what genetic rights do parents have of their own offspring if they choose to want to have the Down syndrome child? Do they have the right? Should doctors pressure them? Should it be viewed as abuse eventually, to be forcing your child to live with a genetic disorder that theoretically maybe could be, you don't even have to end it. Maybe in the future we can just like get rid of the trisomy, and that child who would otherwise be born with Down syndrome can be born without it. It's pretty hard to argue that the parent is in the right to be forcing their child to be born with some sort of genetic mutation.
Right. I was hoping you would have a objectively true moral answer to that question.
I think this is more of a,
you can help me, the subjectivist, out.
Well, I think what you want is like a deontological, like, I don't know, Christian autism posting. I just like, don't do that shit. I don't know. I'm pretty
Yeah, I mean,
relativistic.
some people try to use Christianity to do this applied ethics, and they'll dig through scripture and say we shouldn't be doing this new age thing because it violates this particular aspect of Christianity.
Right.
I
They're
assume you don't.
objectivists, but they're also
Yeah,
absolutists, right?
right,
I'm not an absolutist. I'm a
right.
relativist. I'm closer to Aristotle in that. Like, I believe in an objective morality, but I think the way that it actually like presents itself is relative to the context, like Aristotle would say, right?
How does I'm
So,
yeah,
you know,
I'm just curious about this. I've been talking to a lot of objective morality folk recently. What does that
absolutists, though,
um no, not all of
they
them.
might not have
A
language.
mix, a
Okay.
mix.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
but what does that object look like to you? For someone like myself who is maybe it's just I'm too retarded to imagine the object. Who knows? But I can't view the object of morality the way moral realists tend to be able to view the object of morality. So I'm curious to understand the object.
Do you mean like in a material sense?
No, not in a material sense. Can be a conceptual object. It can be a object. An object made by argumentation. Whatever we mean by object. When you say object, I'm
Yeah, I mean,
happy.
like essentially, like God, if okay, say God determines what justice is. He knows what justice is at this really like broad level, probably in some ways in an absolute kind of way, right? And so we can tap into that through scripture, through logic, through reason, through science, through a whole bunch of stuff to try to figure out what justice looks like in this relative context of now as a woman with these certain, accesses and whatnot. Like what is justice in this like specific moment? So like, unfortunately, I guess it's kind of like gapology. I don't know why the audience is being dismissed. Yes, I'm doing a dogmatism. Welcome to Agrippa's trilemma, you retarded fucking infinite regressor. So like I would basically dogmatically assume that God has certain like justice, like what justice is with capital J, maybe like a sort of like the Socratic forms, but obviously the God gap instead of the Socratic form. Shadows on the wall. Yeah.
It seems like when you talk about it, it 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 kind of seems like a gut thing, something you feel is just the case by way of your sentiments and by way of your
No more than anyone
experiences.
is a gut. No more than anyone is.
Yeah, sure.
In fact, I would say less than a lot of people. Like I'm not an intuitivist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking through my Humean sentimentalist lens, where I think you feel strongly that there is this objective nature to this, and probably the justifications within there. One of them, like you mentioned earlier, would be your personal experience with God, and then
Well, that's why I believe in like a Christian God specifically.
right,
Yeah.
and when you
Yeah.
were mentioning that that objective process you were talking about, looking within the context of the here and now, like women's rights and things like that, that other object involved would be the Gospels, correct?
Not purely, no. I'm not a sola scriptura type person, so.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, does God's apparent word in Scripture play into that at all? Not like
Yeah,
you're pulling a
knowing it
pure.
for sure.
Okay,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And how does that
It helps
process?
inform it.
Okay, so how does that? I'm trying to understand your process there with regards to objective morality. So if you come to, let's say, a moral quandary that you don't have a clear answer to, you might look through the Gospels, through Scripture, or maybe it would be easier using resources online to search specific verses that might speak to the good, bad, right, and wrong of this particular issue, and then you would apply this kind of contextualization, and then from that you come to a moral opinion, and then that's what you're calling objective.
Yes, I suppose so. So I'm looking for typically from the Bible, I'm oftentimes looking for like that principle. Like, what do I think is the actual principle that God is oriented towards in certain things, right? So for different moral quandaries, I'm going to start with some sort of like principle, but I think that principles, unlike a deontologist that has a rule and a rule alone, right? The principle, like the virtue ethicist, kind of goes, well, both the intention and the outcome matter here. So then I'm going to look at the science on some sort of issue, right? I'm going to look at not just the science of like bodily effects, but the effect that it has on society and the effect that it has on communities, right? And all of kind of like the more empirical evidence that's going to be weighted on these sort of things, and kind of go, well, like a lot of the empirical evidence seems to be in support that it oriented towards this principle of justice, for example. And I'll kind of trundle my way in that direction, right? In the case of something like abortion, well, I think that God wants to see people live, and I think that he wants people to be able to live good lives, right? I don't think he like particularly wants more suffering. I think he accepts suffering and knows that it happens, but I don't think that he like delights in it, right? So when you look at the case of abortion, in one case you have like a human life ending, but you also have multiple scripture evidences of God being willing to end those aborted lives in Numbers and Exodus, right? So you go, okay, well, God has obviously not just been the absolutist of saying, well, life at conception and murder is bad and that's it, right? Okay, so God has some sort of moral thing that he's balancing and weighing out here. So then I go, well, what are the other things that would matter here? Well, the life of the mother, but specifically the life of that mother and child, if it's born into a situation of poverty, or it's born into a situation of rape or being unwanted, or incest, or these sort of things. And these are more empirical things that we can look at and go like, okay, well, we know, for example, that when a mother is forced to carry when she doesn't want to, these quality of lives are impacted, the mental health, the poverty levels, it's just like a very common sequelae. So we go, okay, well, that actually matters too here then in the conversation of like the ethics of abortion, where essentially we're doing this pluralistic game of weighing two competing ethical systems, one of them which would be minimizing the suffering of the woman and the child in the future life versus the death of the child at some point, right? And kind of weighing these things out to go, how do we get towards like the closest balance that's manageably tolerable so that we're like as good to everyone as possible? So typically when I'm like wrestling out issues, I think a lot of people, when they think about morals, they think about it like in this really like, how do you decide justice? How do you decide these things? But reality of life is it's almost always pluralistic. And so you like kind of balance these things out. If I'm not sure at all what God's ethic might be towards these pluralistic competing ethics, I'll look and do what's called exegesis, eisegesis, and divine revelation. So looking in the word, trying to understand how it was written, why it was written that way? What's the oldest manuscripts we have? Okay, well, if I can't get the good manuscripts, what does the general principle seem to be about this thing? Okay, I think God probably thinks this way, but then there's eisegesis and divine revelation, so prayer as well, like just trying to be like, man, God, I really hope I'm not like just murdering millions of babies right now. And then empirics of these sort of things. And that's typically how I'm going to wrestle and balance out these moral questions.
So that whole wrestling match, and this is, I think, where you and I would probably part ways and just disagree in, of course, a friendly manner. That wrestling match you're engaging with, that you are calling an objectively moral process, or something that's under the scope of trying to understand the objective moral fact or moral truth there. I see, from my perspective, I see you doing value making, creating value hierarchies, weighing this, weighing that, and I think that's ultimately being born of your sentimentality, your feelings. Another way to put this is that I think emotivism is at play here, just like every other human being. I just don't see the moral fact in what you're talking about, although I agree with your calculus, and like you mentioned earlier, you want people to at least be rational to their purposes, so you'll test that out logically with them when you have conversations. You're more interested in going there as opposed to saying, outside looking in, this is stupid or wrong or whatever. So yeah, I don't understand the leap to moral realism that you take there, because I think you're doing the same kind of calculus, albeit using different sources that similar to what I'm doing.
There's two things. Number one, nobody lives like a subjectivist. Nobody acts like morality is subjective. Nobody ever does. In fact, you have to only be in like the niceties of a polite room to even pretend like it is. The moment you get out into the real world, the reality is that everyone acts like morality is objective. And I think actually the way in which we conduct ourselves around morality and construct our world matters, right? Obviously, as the objectivist, I would look and say, I think that God has designed the world in such a way, right? I would turn to you and I would say, can you not imagine a world where it's only possible for logic and reason to exist thanks to God? Is it not possible that the only reason logic and rationality, and you obviously have to grant me the answer is yes, right? And so this wouldn't be me to say, so therefore you must be a divine command theorist, because like I said, I actually don't care about fitting people into my box of the world of how I view it. You can think whatever you want as long as you like treat people well. It's kind of like your journey. I don't really care. I know other people do, and that's not to knock people who do really care about fighting about like meta ethics and stuff. I just like look and I'm like, oh, so you have a preference to fail Agrippa's trilemma through circular reasoning? Cool. Yeah, I have a preference for dogmatism, right? But that doesn't mean that logic doesn't exist or that we can't ground out some moral objective argument, right? So I think that it exists outside of us and that we are built in such a way, logic and facts, for example, that orient us towards that objective thing, that structure that we are built around. And I think the fact that like universally we keep emerging to a lot of the same values, that these certain Christian type of values keep winning out dominantly and globally, and people seem to have a high preference for them, it would be my argument, it's evidence for it. But obviously, can I prove moral objectivity? No.
Yeah, I think there's.
But you can't prove moral subjectivity either, right? Like the criticism, being able to criticize an epistemic system isn't evidence that the epistemic system fails. It just proves Agrippa's trilemma. Beat us all again. Gosh darn it, those fucking Pharaonic skeptics. We're on to something.
You mentioned the trilemma. You might please lay it out the way you understand it. That would be great.
Yeah, it's that all like moral and epistemic systems typically fail in one of three ways: through dogmatism, infinite regression, and circular reasoning. Like none of them touch integrity. So I don't make the argument. So the Pharaonic skeptics take that to go, therefore, we can't even know if knowledge can exist, right? They're like the ultimate skeptics. Well, I don't actually take that because I think it's unsatisfying. I think none of that. I just go, oh, so all systems are probably accepting one of these forms, which is fine. You essentially have a preferential choice at the very bottom.
The problem with the dogmatism aspect of the trilemma is that
you don't prefer
it's not it's not a problem for people who have eliminated certainty from their epistemic system as some kind of metric to reach for. I've completely eliminated that in my epistemic layout and standards. I use confidence.
Well, you should tell every philosopher PhD that you've actually solved Agrippa's yourself. We'll be very impressed with you.
Well, I mean, I just talked to Graham Oppie, and he operates under the same epistemic system.
There are some
within the Well, there's not only some. There's most academic philosophers, I would say, agree that that knowledge is not a game of certainty, even though it was sold that way for a very long time. That knowledge.
So you would say we can't know if knowledge can exist. Like you are the Pharaonic skeptic.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying that certainty is almost certainly unattainable, and it would be irrational to have something unattainable being the dictum or the driving goal within any system. So,
so are you embracing Agrippa's? Like you're basically saying like Agrippa's is like a beautiful thing. Like it sounds like you're saying, well, yeah, I'm saying
I
don't need to touch integrity because I don't care about integrity.
It's not. It's just not a problem that that certainty is almost certainly unattainable. It's not an epistemic problem. A lot of people will think that pointing that out, that dogmatisms, things that are believed to be incontrovertibly true, are actually problems for the epistemologist. That's a myth. It should have never been stated as such. It shouldn't be believed as such. You can have a perfectly sound valid epistemic standard without any mention of certainty. You can use things like plausibility, leading to levels of confidence within yourself to inform your epistemic standards. So,
yeah, sure. I'm just not familiar with this. I'm trying to understand it. So you're not a Pharaonic skeptic, but I'm imagining that you have some sort of axiom that starts your moral system, at least.
Yeah. So,
Is it
so
is it a coherent system? Like, what are we relying on?
well, I can explain it to you. So, my system is born out of a simple presupposition that health is preferential to sickness, and from that presupposition, because the one step below that is that my sentiments, I'm a Humean sentimentalist, give rise to this feeling that health is preferential to sickness. It's a fundamental feeling that's almost entirely universal
like
across
health
all
is
humanity.
good. Like health is good,
Yeah,
kind of.
health is when
How
you
is that
give,
not circular?
well, it's not circular because I'm saying
Health
this
equals
comes
good,
to
good
me.
equals health, right? Am I correct? It sounds like you're saying health equals good, and good probably equals health, right? From your axiom.
Health.
I just want to be clear. It's like I think that's a great axiom.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear.
Health is good because I feel it's good.
Sure,
Is that circular?
Sure, but yeah.
I don't think it's circular.
How is it
Why
not
is it
circular? If
circular?
it's not circular, it's dogmatic.
Well, it can be. It doesn't have to be dogmatic either. Dogmatism means
Well, you're just
believing
saying, well,
something.
I assume health is good.
Yeah,
I have
but
a preference.
dogmatism
would
would only apply if I was claiming that this axiom was incontrovertibly certain, because that's what dogmatisms are: things that are claimed to be incontrovertibly certain.
I don't know if that's true.
It is. That's the academic usage of dogmatism.
Well, I can assume God and acknowledge that there's a chance that I'm incorrect, right?
Yeah. Then you wouldn't be dogmatic. If you're open.
I am not.
Well, if you're dogmatic, then that would mean there's some kind of incontrovertible certainty within the system. But like if you claim, if you claim impossibility, for example, that would be a dogmatic position. It doesn't matter. There are millions of mathematical dogmatists around the world who are sitting there saying it is incontrovertibly, absolutely, and always will be the case that 2 + 2 = 4. That would be a dogmatism. And some people are okay with that, but what they could do is just say, I don't see any way that 2 + 2 = 4 could really be contradicted. So I am as confident as I could be epistemically, but I'm still open to update on this. I think is a
sure, but I don't think the
position.
openness to update actually frees you from Agrippa's trilemma. I think it just makes you a better interlocutor.
Yeah, I'm not saying these are like defeaters for the trilemma. I'll let you determine whether or not they are. I'm just giving you my system. But when you mentioned,
sounds like you're saying a circularity, and then when I highlight, well, it sounds like you're doing circular. Then you go, well, no. I'm just assuming that health is good because I prefer it.
Yes,
but you're stating that as a fact, and just because you're saying I could be wrong, it doesn't mean that you're not failing Agrippa's trilemma in the way that we're talking about with Agrippa's trilemma.
I'm not saying it's a fact. I think that's the difference. It's not a fact that health is preferential to sickness. So,
but are you assuming it without evidence?
No. The evidence. The evidence is the experience of my feelings. That's evidence.
Sure, but you're assuming that your feelings are true and they actually exist, and you're not like a sea sponge at the bottom just being like fed.
Yeah, based on correspondence criteria of truth.
The actual assumption here is that like your feelings are meaningful.
Yes. That is the Humean sentimentalist is gonna say that your feelings, and I think it's consistent with cognitive science as well. Like your feelings are at play.
I like intuitivists a lot generally. Like I think if I wasn't a DCT, I'd probably be an intuitivist. I think it's a very compelling system.
Okay.
So what I am saying, I just want to be clear, because a lot of people get like really defensive about Agrippa's. What I'm not saying is you're illogical and stupid. What I'm saying is that that's a really good system. It sounds like you are assuming that by Agrippa's definition of what we're talking about, that is a dogmatism. I just think that's a really sound one to do.
Yeah.
It's much preferable to what I hear a lot of other people give. For example, a tag person, I would say, is significantly less satisfactory in their answer to Agrippa's than your answer is there.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. I would still quibble with the definition of dogmatism being used because, I'm I'm something I've studied very deeply, dogmatism, and I'm writing about it in my first book and my first virtue of fallibilism. With the corresponding maxim that certainty is almost certainly unattainable, is my chapter on dogmatism. But perhaps if it is the case, and it's something I'm going to look at after our conversation, that there is a competing academic definition, then perhaps I need to give some weight to it in my first chapter.
Well, in the substance of what Agrippa's critique is to like these systems, what I'm saying is that like it doesn't seem to me that assuming based on a preference my feelings are true essentially, or like are meaningful. I think it was my feelings are meaningful is I think what we agreed on. That to me doesn't seem like a meaningful sidestep of the actual critique of what Agrippa's is, which is basically saying no system like arrives at some level of like integrity that doesn't fail by these sorts of things. And I agree that like your lack of certainty makes you more honest interlocutor, in the same way that like I always like big chest say like I dogmatically am assuming God, right? Because I have no evidence for it. I'm believing that it's true. And I'm functionally operating as though it is a fact, right? While acknowledging as an individual, of course I'd be wrong. Like if people ask like, how confident you are that God exists? I'm like 75%.
Well, I appreciate, look.
And how confident am I that it's a Christian God? 65%.
Yeah, I appreciate that fallibilist posture, because one of my missions is to give people ways out of dogmatism, because being fallible, like you just outlined, leads to more cognitive flexibility, and cognitive flexibility leads to higher levels of health across the board when we consider physical, mental, and social health. So from my presupposition that health is preferential to life, then I have this goal of health, and where are we best schooled in trying to better understand health standards for human beings? I would say in medical and biological sciences. So then I use medical and biological sciences as ways to measure the factual outcomes of issues that could be measured by a standard of physical, mental, and social health. So, and I call this moral well-beingism. And I think a lot of moral well-beingists in the past have failed to articulate this philosophy very well. Sam Harris does a pretty good job. There are some other people throughout history who have done decent jobs at this, but I think once we grant this quite universal feeling that we all have for the most part when we're functioning properly, that health is preferential to sickness, then I would say we can be quite factual about moral outcomes and the kind of moral quests we should be promoting to each other in the world. And I think one that where you are trying to maximize physical, mental, and social health for yourself and those around you is important. And to speak to your mention of maximization earlier, I don't mean that there is a maximum level, and that if we don't achieve that maximum level, we feel as though we have morally failed ourselves or those around us. It's that this is meant the moral quest is meant to be kind of a perpetual motion machine driving us forward towards the good life. And we will have, some people will only be able to achieve a certain amount of maximization for themselves and those around them in their life, and some people will achieve greater levels. But I do think when it comes to our effects on each other, the thing that really does matter at the end of the day is how it affects our physical, mental, or social health, which are which basically deal with all aspects of the human condition and the human experience. So,
if people achieve less like moral good than others do, are they worse?
No.
Morally worse?
If they are causing moral, I call bad and wrongful things when people are actively causing well-being detriment to themselves and to others. Now, and I delineate, I think in high resolution philosophy, there should always be this delineation between good, bad, and right and wrong. For example, when it comes to war, I think the United States was righteous in World War II, going to fight back the Nazis to Berlin, but I don't think there was anything good about it. It was
Gotcha.
bad. War is bad, but I think there's righteousness in that. Just like how I see self-defense. If someone's attacking you and you get a quick one on them and you knock them out, there's nothing good about that situation. It's a bad situation, but I think you were righteous in defending yourself. So just to give you a little bit of taste where I'm at.
If we did the research and it turned out that to achieve maximum health, okay, it would eliminate all diseases. Every single person had to eat their own firstborn. Would you prescribe that world?
No, because the violation would be obvious towards the newborn. The newborn gets my full moral consideration. So in my worldview, my moral quest says that I must maximize well-being for myself and those around me. That includes the newborn, and it includes conscious creatures as well, but the conscious creatures at a different level than human beings. But yeah, no, it would be easy for me to go to war with that practice. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
What about if it was to eat your own hand? So you're not harming another individual, but if every person just eats their own hand, it like guarantees health and longevity, and it guarantees all the maxims of health that you care about. They just have to eat their own hand once with no pain, with pain assistance.
Yeah, it's a good question. In a strange world like that, if there was good scientific modeling to say that, I'm a piano player, for example.
Yeah,
losing my hand,
all of that stuff.
Yeah, losing.
And you can get a perfectly replaced metal hand.
Okay, yeah.
So there's no detriments. I'm going to wave the magic wand and say yes. In
amazing.
This magical world. Yeah,
if there's no detriments and it truly did maximize well-being, and again, I would look to our highest schools of learning when it comes to understanding how this would in fact affect. But if this became the obvious scientific consensus, then it would make sense for someone to have their own hand removed and to eat their own hand. Yes. Now I do worry about the piano thing and how the new hand is going to function.
I'm of course putting you in an absurd hypothetical.
No, it's
prototypical human experience.
It's a very
I was just testing
fair
that belief.
And I also I'll also tell you that if I had to gnaw my hand off, there are righteous ways that I would gnaw my own hand off. If by gnawing my own hand off, I could escape, entrapment by some lunatic and go and save my child in the next room, then I would consider that to be a bad thing. It would be a bad act for me to gnaw my hand off, but it would be made righteous because of my intentionality behind it, trying to escape and also trying to save my child in the next room.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like you're saying, I would live the principle out to the maximum. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Kyla, if you're okay with this, I would like to move down to the live Hangout tab, and then some of our audience members can ask you some questions and go back and forth with you for a bit, if you're okay with that.
Yes, I've noticed a little bit of rudeness already in the side chat. If people are rude, I'm like not feeling great. I'm not.
Yeah.
I will have literally. This won't be on your fault. I will have zero tolerance. I will just whip out the sword.
No, I will be.
I get a bad ear infection tonight, so I've got like zero tolerance for rudeness.
I will be muting anyone who's rude. Everything at Pangburn needs to be good faith and helpful. And moderators down there, you should be handling this if anyone's being rude in the chat there. So let's all head down to the live Hangout and let's have some conversations with Kyla. Let's go with Trey. Did you have something first?
Well, I think Kyla, I liked how Kyla pressed you at the end there, because I've tested your moral system too. When I asked you if you would force everybody to take the wellness pill drug that science discovered. And then I think originally you had said you wouldn't because that was a use of force, but then you eventually changed it, and I forget because somebody else came in and went off of my example.
Well, but remember that Kyla's example didn't use force, right? she wasn't saying, would you force others to have their hand removed because it was better for their well-being? And of course I would not do that. Consent is a very important aspect of physical, mental, and social health. But go ahead, Trey. Why don't you ask Kyla a question if you have one?
Okay, I got one. Kyla, you have debated with Andrew Wilson, and I have tried to get Travis to bring him on. And I think Travis has communicated with him before, but how do you think he would deal with being on the Pangburn stage? I know that you just started this, though.
My read of the Pangburn space, based on this conversation, is you guys are like pretty analytical Phil guys. I don't know whether you guys lean left or right yet generally, but I find Andrew Wilson gets very frustrated by, so like Andrew Wilson is terrified of not knowing the answers to things. And where I'll just tell you, as I'm like, I'm not an analytical Phil expert. Like, I don't know my answer to this. I think Andrew Wilson's very terrified of that. I think his debate against divinity was a good example of that, where he's debating this Ayn Randian objectivist, which I think, everyone always says Ayn Randian is your first stop of philosophy, not your last stop, right? So like, I think a lot of people like respect Randian philosophy, but don't stay there. And yet he was like pretty stumped. I think he's very uncomfortable being in the realm of people who I would say are like obviously his expert. Like it's obvious that Travis is my expert in philosophy. It's just like, that's fine with me. I don't know if he would be as comfortable with that. But like, you never know. He can be decently charismatic. So have to see.
Yeah, thanks, Trey. Let's move the mic around a bit. Robin, I would love to bring Robin in. Robin, by the way, who is my fundraising czar for the first Pangburn Education Center we're going to be building in northern Uganda in 2027. Robin was the one that presented you, Kyla, to me in the first place, and got me really interested in wanting to work with you. So, but I just wanted to mention that because I think it's important. Go ahead, Robin.
Thank you, Travis. I'm sure she don't remember, but I came into one of her lives one time, and I was like, "What would you think about doing it?" And so, yeah. But I'm sure she don't remember. But it's so nice to meet you. I really am a friend of yours. Yes, I'm.
Sounds like you're doing amazing work, so that's really cool. Thank you for that.
Well, you have too. Like
I think schools in Uganda definitely take the cake over internet debating, but I appreciate it.
Well, I love to debate with like Andrew, and I have actually debated Jim Bob before, and like I talked to him after y'all's debate, and I told him, I said, I watched your debate, and he said, did you see me flub the three branches of government? I was like, yes. I was so
mine rent-free. Yeah.
Yes, it was so great. But anyway,
he blocked me immediately after that debate, actually.
Yeah, he doesn't take that very well. Is that my mic?
No, I think that was Perry. Perry, can you mute, brother? Thank you. Yeah, Robin, go ahead. Yeah.
I was trying to think if I had a question, and now I'm gonna have to. I got so excited to talk, I forgot what it was. So let me go back around, and I'll try to remember it.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Thanks, Robin. Simos, go ahead. Simos going once. Simos going twice. Brett, do you have a question? Brett.
Yeah, hey. How's it going? Yeah, I agree, Kyla. I really sorry, I'm preparing dinner. It's my night to do dinner. I really appreciated your debate with Andrew. I'm not a fan of his unhelpfulness, Trey, to your point earlier, talking about him coming on. I think it's very actually toxic in the debate realm, just because where are humans going? But my question would be along the lines of, sorry, let me think of how to word this. Basically, you're talking about your background and your relation to Christianity, which is great. I wonder how you square that away with, more particularly in the United States right now, where we're seeing other sects of the religion or denominations just really, dividing people and dehumanizing others actively. How do you approach that in those conversations, kind of like you did with the many women on the one panel? I think it was the feminist debate, if I remember right. Like, how do you approach a situation like that where, you know, you're actively going in to try to have a good faith dialogue, but then there's also people who, to Travis's point, might use the dogmatism, you know, to perpetuate ideas that can harm society. How do you approach that?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is kind of why I said, like, one of my biggest critiques of modern day Democrat liberals is that they will have meetings about everything. And they really have like the polo meeting to talk about how fascism's happening, and then like be like, all right, so meeting next week, and like that's it. There is like an important time to know like when to have the sword. And I think that there's like a moral duty, particularly as a Christian. I think it's like probably one of my highest moral duties, other than like being a good person generally, like in how I conduct myself. Like I think a greater calling of duty on myself is to be one of the people verbally against Christian nationalism as a Christian specifically. Those are usually the people that I think I end up being the harshest to. I don't know if you ever watched my debate with Sarah Stock, but I was like pretty mean, like pretty much out of the gate, but she's like a extremely racist, celebrated the ending of US aid, like just really seems to want to see people she dislikes suffer. And there's nothing Christian about that. So I tend to get like pretty harsh on them, which I think is correct for me to do. I think I typically try my best to earn it. I don't typically attack like their looks or stupid stuff. But yeah, I do try to bring like the sword and like really catch them in like their errors. Also, it helps that I know my theology like actually quite well. Again, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a theologian, but like compared to like the average Christian, I tend to be able to keep up pretty well. And so, yeah, I try to come in prepared for that.
I think that's a great point. It's just, you know, at some point there has to be, the elephant in the room has to be, hey, you can claim to be any religion you want or non-religion, any ideology you follow, but are you actively engaging with the collective society where something like human rights for all people, like when you go to debate that on, you know, sectarianism or a denomination of a religion or the political party or the othering of immigrants, I'm really, that one bothers me greatly. Yeah, I think you make a really good point that there's times where you do need to engage, and I agree with you. Liberals need to do a much better job about that. And there's also points where it's like, hey, there is like a fundamental difference here in whether it's ethics or whatever it might be. But I'll stop because I don't want to go too far off of that. Thank you for taking my question.
Yeah. I think policing your own is like, if you identify with a group significantly, you have some level of moral duty to police your own. Particularly when they're acting immorally.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brett. Robin, you're up next. You remembered your question.
Yes, I do. Okay. I'm thinking of what I've listened to you. I identify as like the liberal, like, I think that's where you're at, right? Sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I think we align pretty good on political. So, I feel like that a whole lot of people, though, in the Democratic Party are moving far left of us. Or it seems like the younger people and stuff. Do you see that?
For sure. Yeah, DSA is growing up popularity for sure.
Do you see that as an issue, especially with like the religion and because I feel like that maybe there's not. I'm not around the religious community, so but are the younger people, are they like? Are they as engaged in religion, or are they moving away from it? Or
I think generally attendance is falling, but like a lot of online identifiers are growing, but it's dominantly people like claiming Christianity so they can just use it as a bludgeon against like queer people. Yeah. It seems like mostly, which is a tragedy. It's such an embarrassment as a Christian to see that. I do see a lot of young people also moving like in that socialist direction. My issue is that I don't know how they don't, frankly. Like I think like the biggest issue with, like I said, with modern liberals is that they're careerists, they're very obsessed with finger wagging, and they're very, very disconnected from the common man. The East Coast elite like drives the DNC. I work with the DNC, so I know it, and they are so disconnected from most people's like lived experiences that I think they truly are kind of like the bureaucrats trying to tell like the plumbers union how they ought to conduct themselves, and the plumbers are like, I can tell you've never been a plumber because no plumber would ever make that a rule, right? It feels like a lot of that is happening. And so it's kind of an opportunity for the DNC to smarten up, or possibly for liberals to join the DSA movement, because DSA like doesn't have to be anti-liberal. Like liberalism is a pretty broad thing. So maybe having more liberals join the DSA to kind of steer it away from the more extremist ends of it. Because I think extremism is the main concern here.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robin. Simos, you look like you're ready to go. Simos, do you have something?
Hopefully.
Okay,
Yeah,
fantastic.
you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the Andrew. I got introduced to you through Robin as well, and then I did some deep dives on some of your. I say deep dives. I couldn't watch all of them. The Jim Bob.
Oh yeah, don't worry.
Just 20 minutes in, I'm like, oh, Jim Bob being Jim Bob. But I was very interested in the Andrew Wilson one, because there was a couple of crucial moments. Firstly, you were talking about tanks.
Oh,
And you were absolutely right on it.
I know.
It turns out, right? It turns out.
I should have fact checked him.
Yeah, it turns out that it was correct, because Leonardo da Vinci invented the tank, and he just drew a picture of it.
Yeah,
So there was no build up to the tank at all. It was just straight out of someone's mind sitting down. But nonetheless, that's just a by the by. The real thing I wanted to ask you about was there came a point in the debate where I think you were getting quite frustrated, and you decided to mirror his actions back to him. And that's the point that really broke him, I felt, because he then complained to the moderator about being interrupted. So did you feel at that point, what made you do that to mirror back? Was it just a question of frustration, or did you think, no, this is a great tactic I'm going to use now because he's going to flip? Or
I wish I could tell you it was tactical. Unfortunately, I think like despite the fact that people like, I know Pangburn ranks me as like super patient, I can get frustrated pretty quickly. Like I actually have a bit of a shorter fuse than I would like, at least. I promise you I do. I just unironically dissociate in debates. I'm not even joking.
This was after like 3 hours of him constantly interrupting you and not allowing you to finish sentences.
Right,
and
but I know in those
properly.
debates, so I'm tactical in my calmness. Like the calmness is the tactic, because I know that as long as I don't react too much to his extremely dumb audience, I'm winning. Like I'm at least not losing, but if he can get me to react big, he wins, right? So the calmness is very tactical. It's also something I aspire towards. I think it's better to be that way. I want to make it clear, I'm not like noble by any means in my patience. I'm just tactical in it. So when I finally snapped at him, honestly, it was probably just getting frustrated. I do think that there is, like, on reflection, because you can be reactive and it be a good like tactical choice. Like I really do think there's a time and place to flip people's own behavior on themselves, essentially, like to bring out the sword. And I think I had well earned it by 3 hours. I'm just actually pretty bad at it. Like I'm very uncomfortable being mean.
Right.
So, which is juxtaposed against the fact that I'm very irritable. So I get angry quickly, but I also don't like being mean. I don't know.
I don't think it was mean either, because you didn't do it in a mean way. You interrupted him by just finishing your points when he interrupted you. And that's what actually tipped the scale for me. And that's what made me think, oh, look, she's won the debate here. Right here, she's won the debate. And if she'd only done that like 2 hours earlier,
well, you have to earn
I would
it.
have
You
had
have to
2
earn
hours down the pub.
Yeah, I know. The issue with as a woman is you don't get to flip. Like in general, you have to stay calmer than your opponent, but especially as a woman in a very misogynistic space, whatever is like your assumption of how calm you need to stay before you can be aggressive to your opponent, as a woman, it's like 2x that in highly misogynistic spaces. So like I'm very aware of when I'm in red pill spaces, how I conduct myself, because it takes so much more to earn it from the audience.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. You don't find that the red pills will simp more?
They'll do both. They'll simp in my DMs, but they'll be nasty in public.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, and so the point I really want you to bring out there is that this is one example of Andrew Wilson's hypocrisy, where he's prepared to interrupt somebody for 3 hours, and then as soon as maybe he was 10 minutes into you mirroring his actions before he complained to the moderator about being interrupted. So really, that's quite a service done to the community, because now he doesn't have that moral leg to stand on, which he likes to stand on, being right all the time, and clearly showing hypocrisy live in a debate is not something which he's ever going to be right about again,
Yeah.
So anyway, that was really it. I look forward to seeing more debates by you, of course, and especially on the Pangburn stage. I'm looking forward to the ones that you're doing with Pearl, I think it is, and that should be interesting as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Simos. I would like to check in with Perry. Perry, do you have anything for Kyla?
Yeah, actually, I saw a couple people were unmuted and shied away, but I wouldn't mind asking a follow-up question, or maybe making a few follow-up points. I think that one, viewing something as like a win or loss scenario limits the amount of fruit that otherwise could be had in just a regular kind of good faith dialectic. But even if we do frame it in W or L, I don't believe that showing emotion, which you mentioned as a female, you feel as though, especially in these misogynistic cultures, is like an L. And I think that's not saying that you necessarily have that toxic view, but it is a product of kind of the toxic debate culture, toxic stoicity, like masking your emotions and showing. I don't think that there's anything wrong with telling your interlocutor that you may be frustrated with something that you're saying. Andrew Wilson is a real piece of work. This kind of general advice may not apply to scum like him, but I just kind of wanted to follow up on that. Now, I mean, if I can ask a question rather than just say what I want to say, I mean, what do you think about that? Do you feel as though like you kind of prioritize and make primary hiding that emotion, or do you feel as though there's room for demonstrating emotion in a way that can be helpful to the dialectic?
So I'm obviously not opposed to people expressing emotion. Like, for example, if I'm debating somebody and they get angry at me, I never care. I think emotion is great and beautiful, and I wish people stopped doing Victorian stoicism, as you kind of like highlighted, that toxic stoicism. The issue is that in a space like that, I am at all times aware of the male preferentialism that exists, not just in like highly misogynistic spaces, but even in like liberal spaces. Like the reality is that like women are going to be assumed to be more emotional, and as a response, irrational, because people very much lump these two together, which I think probably in this space where you guys seem much more intellectually sophisticated, you guys can separate these two things and say you can be emotional and rational, obviously. In fact, emotion is important, as probably the emotivist would say, to good rationality. But you have to remember that in this space, like, what role do I want to occupy? My goal is to be an off-ramp to some young men who think Andrew's a little bit icky, and they are looking for better alternatives to ideas than just what he's putting out. And the reality is that like moderate to conservative young man who's already watching this content is going to have already a bunch of pre-baked sexism down. Like, you know, he's got the early patch of the game, okay? He's got early sexism downloaded, which means that if I cry, it is an optic L. I don't think it's bad. Like if my opponent cried, for example, mostly I would feel like a piece of shit, if I'm being honest. Like, I wouldn't think ill of them. But my like work on disentangling like inherited sexism and like inherited unhealth towards emotivity is not something that I'm going to presume the audience has, because I know that they generally don't. So like there is a time and place to show to express emotion. You just have to be very smart about it. And as a woman, not just in misogynistic spaces, but across the board, you have to be even more tactical about it. If you're too defensive, you come across like a naggy bitch. Nobody, including liberals, including female liberals, like naggy bitches, right? So you have to be very aware of all of the presuppositions that you can get pulled into and do your best to thread between those things, because by being the person that threads between, I might pull off some men that would otherwise go down a red pill pathway. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Sure.
that's how.
Yeah, I think it does. And I understand those dynamics that you're laying out. Just to reiterate, because I don't think it can be reiterated enough, but Andrew Wilson, I won't call him scum, but he has very scummy ideas and ways of going about the intellectual game. We mentioned kind of the bullying aspect that there seems to be. I know Travis brought up, like, there's this McDonald's philosophy where we try and prop up these ideas in a way that kind of hits our dopamine receptors and gets us hooked. I don't even think Andrew Wilson is that. I think he's the dumpster behind McDonald's, which, you know, rats kind of go in and try and feed off of. So I'll end it with that right there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Perry. Arcion, you had a question?
Yes, hello. How you doing, Kyla?
Hi.
Hi. So my question is what's your favorite color and how do you apply that to the Agrippa's trilemma? I'm kidding. That's a stupid joke. But
Green is dogmatism. It's a preferential dogmatism. I just assume it's.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. So here's a more serious question. Potentially this question might not be relevant to something you care about, so you might just be able to brush this off. If not, I'll ask you a different one. But the first one is we've had a debate in the past, and you probably remember this, or maybe not, where we talked about addiction, and about homelessness. And do you remember that by chance?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember the specifics, but yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you, and I just want to kind of pick your brains here. Do you think that it is better to, in at least maybe not in all cases, but like at least in some cases, to focus more on enabling safe levels of vice versus sobriety?
Like harm reduction? Yeah, I think harm reduction is like, but again, harm reduction is 9 times out of 10 done for society. It's not necessarily done for the individual.
Oh, okay. Could you explain?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people have a high preference for harm reduction, and it's because harm reduction makes that individual easier to tolerate in society. It gets them off of the street and stuff like that. But typically when you look at like people on methadone, for example, and again, this is not me advocating against methadone. I'm radically for methadone because it is a better life. The issue is that it is a very dulled life. A lot of people on methadone report feeling very foggy. They have very poor memory consolidation. So there's a lot of like strange cons that come from it that again are probably preferable for the individual. But the issue is that it can be really hard because our society doesn't recognize that the person on methadone needs as much help as the person on the street, because the person on the street is loud and squeaky, right? It's the squeaky wheel of society. Whereas the person on methadone actually still needs intensive care and therapy, but a lot of times our medical system will go, done, that person's not on the street anymore, so check. And then you see methadone people at really high risk for relapse, particularly with like life crises, because their life quality is like pretty like meh. And then they have some sort of crisis happen that kind of topples them under. So I'm not opposed to harm reduction at all. I think it's a great thing. I think that it has some negative sequelae that can just be managed by greater like awareness. But it does concern me sometimes when harm reduction becomes the preferential treatment over full rehabilitation.
Yeah, because I think you probably can guess this already, but I'm more in favor of like I feel like sobriety seems more optimal, assuming the sobriety is even possible. Because I can understand there are some people who maybe maybe their brains like are just not capable of sobriety. Maybe they just have too much of an addictive personality. But yeah, and I guess I'll just add this one in because this is a really easy question, and it will take you like a second to answer. Do you think in another life, and just because I hear that there's a lot to do with like brain chemistry and personality, that can decide this for us. Do you think in another life you could be a conservative? Like you're mostly the same person, but like you may have like one or two wires different.
I feel like I had all the precursors to make me. I think my personality, I'm like 99th percentile in openness to experience, which just like predicts liberal like orientation. I think it's in another life where my openness is lower, definitely. But like I definitely had all of the precursors to being born and raised and staying conservative, and I didn't. So
yeah.
probably
well,
not.
I score in a way that's kind of similar or to what a lot of liberals do, and I'm pretty staunch on conservatism. So who knows? Maybe there's hope for you yet. All right. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Arsion, thank you so much. New member, re-examination. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to say hi, Kyla. Usually I'm disagreeing with you on a lot of things from a conservative, Reformed Baptist, Sixth-day Creation, theological basis. But I will say this, on one of my podcasts with a guy named Rev Russ, we were on your side in terms of being against Jesse Lee Peterson and his weird women are Satan kind of stuff. And then also against what was that girl, Sarah Stock, and the Christian nationalism stuff. So I'm in this weird position watching your debates, thinking I'm going to be critiquing you, ending up, agreeing with you on most points. But I just wondered how your Orthodox progressive Christian theology, like how is that arranged? What's the tradition, and what are the methods that put all the theology in place for that theology?
Yeah, so it's a Protestant branch. It's called Radical Orthodoxy. It's a branch of like postmodern theology. So there aren't like a lot of churches. Probably the most people that I know that are Radical Orthodox are probably going to go to Episcopalian churches. Frankly, I don't think that's overly so kind of a modernist Protestant. So that I feel like that's mostly answering your thing. I'm Protestant.
Is that purely allegorical, where you have a secular basis, but you like to put it kind of in the ice cube tray of theological terms that the Bible uses, or what do you?
No, it's like I believe in a magic sky daddy very deeply and personally, and talk to him like all the time, and I believe in the magic that he does in this world. I just reject a lot of modern theological stuff, but like I literally believe in a God, in a theistic God that's a Trinity that hopefully I go to heaven afterwards if I haven't fucked up too much. Okay. Yeah. It's not cultural Christianity, if that's what you're asking.
Got it. Yeah, I don't want to monopolize, but I feel like I would have a ton of questions on how that would work. But if you ever want to drop by my modest channel for an interview from a conservative basis, that'd be good. But I don't want to take over anybody's time. But thank you for your answer.
All right, thank you, Reexamination. I think that we're probably at that point that we can let Kyla go. Kyla, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to.
Can we talk about dog? Can I ask a question about dog, Travis, if that's okay?
Okay, one quick question, Nate. Yeah.
Okay, Travis. I'm a follower of dog. And Travis had on the other day, it was Graham Oppie, I think. I'm curious. I don't mean to end with like a heavy question, but it's about epistemology, sort of. So yeah, and I'm sorry for asking in the first place, but what is it, in your view, when we see people like Andrew Wilson, or we just see the debate space producing really simple arguments that sort of lead into the manosphere, red pill, like artificial things, right? What do you think the biggest barrier to getting into more truthful or authentic discussions in the modern era might be? Like, what is that for? Like
an audience with a hunger for. I think as the audience gets more informed, like I have actually watched media literacy improve of these audiences, like increasingly Jubilee audiences.
Sure.
are having I'm one of Jubilee's like stars, but I will not do the gotcha game. Like they literally will boot me because I won't do the gotcha game. But the audience really likes me. So it shows like there is an increasing hunger for some level of sophistication. It's the constant academic battle of how do you have high level of sophisticated discussion that can appeal broadly to like a grade 5 vocabulary audience. And I think that that's just a really narrow thing to thread.
And it's hard because we do want those audiences there for longer periods of time sometimes too, right? And so like wrapping between wrapping between the space where we can have long form discussions, but they're still progressive, they're still forward moving. Those are difficult things to do. And I don't feel like there's been any support recently. I don't feel like there's been any fucking support for that stuff. It's been narcissism, egotistical bullshit, and I'm sick of it personally. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually say to you, probably one of the most important things to improving this is I think nobody understands the importance of a moderator. The moderators are going to be the main thing that actually determine the quality of the conversation. If you have a really high quality moderator that will nip in the bud, just like nasty behavior and correct it and force engagement, especially a moderator that doesn't stop the meanness, because you want some meanness and some tension to keep the views up. That like you find that moderator, you can have a really high appeal show. It's just nobody moderates yet because everyone's afraid that the audience won't like it if it's moderated well. And frankly, I don't think there's many people skilled enough to be that type of moderator. And second of all, I don't think many of the medium spaces understand. I don't think anyone understands the importance of a moderator, but they're like essential to the quality of a conversation.
Okay. Anyone else? I actually think we'll let Kyla go now. Kyla, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you on the Pangburn stage September 12th versus Pearl Davis. It's going to be very exciting. Thank you, Kyla.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye. And we will keep the conversation rolling here. Everyone on YouTube, please join us on Discord if you're not already a Discord member. We also had a Discord member who just had a stroke, unfortunately. Adam, our thoughts are with you. Adam had a stroke last night. He is doing fine. He's recovering. This is his PayPal email. If people have a few bucks to send Adam, that would be great. I just wanted to kind of pass the hat around for Adam today. We are going to just go into open discussion here. We can discuss things related to the conversation we just had. Of course, I could have went back and forth with Kyla on the moderator issue, but we didn't have time. But I do think what I would consider low resolution or mid resolution conversation spaces seem to need a babysitter, i.e. moderator, to keep the conversations good faith, helpful, keep them passionate, give direction. But the high resolution space, I think at that point, once you for the most part, once you get to the Pangburn stage that demands a lot more out of their speakers, you should not need a moderator at this point. Something very important too is for there to be public display of high resolution failure on stage. There's a lot to be learned from the failures we saw between Destiny and Konstantin Kisin in the first half or third of their conversation together. There's a lot of important lessons there. And I think it's important that we don't have moderators getting in the way of robbing us of those important public lessons. But I do understand that in some spaces, like, not to call all of our conversations low resolution, but when we're just having general community conversations, it really does help to have a moderator sometimes, giving people opportunities, especially if it's a very large room like this. Some moderation, some hosting helps out a lot. And yes, you don't want to have a moderator that's robbing any of the passion out of the conversation. So yeah, at different levels, this seems to be required more. But I think once you get to the high resolution level, once you get to the level of Matt Dillahunty versus Jordan Peterson, which I think is an example of the way the most high resolution conversations should go, then a moderator is simply going to get in the way.
Yeah, I think if I could speak on that, I think to use the McDonald's analogy, if you're going to be eating from the dumpster of McDonald's, you're going to want to have a doctor on standby.
Yeah.
And similarly, if you're going to have the McDonald's level dialectic, you probably need a doctor of philosophy or a doctor of the dialectic there to sit the babies back into place.
Yeah, I mean, that's I love how we keep building on this analogy of dietary choices and restaurants. I actually think it's a fantastically fun analogy that does graft on well to the debate world, like to our intellectual appetites. It's fun.
Well, I like being in charge, Travis. I like being in charge, so you can leave me the monitor anytime. And I do want to ask you to make Hizzle a mod over on the regular Pangburn channel, because like today I was wanting to pay attention to Kyla and I couldn't mod over there, and Hizzle doesn't have any mod powers over there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, yeah, that's great. I don't see Hizzle there. Maybe here. Okay, yeah, I can make Hizzle add as moderator.
I asked him, I was like, keep an eye on, because yesterday we kind of had a little bit of like some like issues in chat on the other channel.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's fine. I mean, we want to manage the good faith and helpfulness in the YouTube chat as much as we can. It's less stringent there than it is here in the Pangburn community on Discord. So we have to use our judgment, but I can give some information that will help better guide the moderation on YouTube. It's often a little bit lighter than here because it also does help the spread of the live stream, which is great.
Yeah, I'm pretty liberal about modding, but that one guy said something that was pretty horrific yesterday in chat. So
okay,
yeah,
we don't want that.
And I wanted to my friend Rick Rex. That's my buddy that I invited over here, and he's actually a Christian too. So
fantastic.
I told Trey to be somebody Trey to partner up with.
Well, we're starting to get a good collection of good faith, helpful Christians that love to mingle with the dirty, rotting, hellbound atheists. It's a lot of fun. So it's this is great. Everyone, if you have more theists, I would love to get some. We used to have quite a few Muslims, but many of them aren't as active anymore. But yeah, anyone who has friends that could benefit from the community, especially those that aren't atheists, if you're trying to sort through your mind for specific people, that would be great. It's I love having conversations with people with diverse opinions. Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
I was just going to say that I'm glad you were bringing it up, that it's also a very good thing, because like you were alluding to earlier, having those open conversations. And, I think one of the themes that I noticed throughout yours and Kyla's conversation with other people kind of chiming in as well is that the bad, faithful, debaters, really it's trying to navigate that world of am I going to spend my time, discussing ideas with someone who is, potentially bad faith, but then you only know that by trying and still trying to, keep the conversation going.
It's amazing how potent it is, Brett, if someone who is the utmost good faith and helpful posture maintains this through a bad faith, unhelpful environment. There's an important lesson here to me, it's glaringly obvious and very embarrassing for the bad faith, unhelpful person if the good faith, helpful person can maintain this virtuous posture through hell. I'm not saying that we should seek this out, but I'm saying if I got invited and there was an opportunity for me to expose Pangburn and the school we're building to fundraise for the school onto a platform where I would be exposed to millions of people, and I understood that this might go in a bad faith, unhelpful direction, I would call upon my strongest sentiments to maintain that virtuous posture throughout the conversation. Obviously, there can be times where things can turn drastically brutal into hardcore bullying and things like that, and that's something I wouldn't tolerate. And once it's appropriate to put on a self-defense, then of course those minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic are no longer in reference to what's happening here. What's happening here is that there is a bully trying to bully you, and self-defense is justified, in my opinion. But I do think there's a lot of virtue, a lot of well-being to be had in giving examples of overcoming, the person who holds ideas that you detest, but also is behaving in a way that you detest.
Yeah, great point.
Travis, hello.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I speak?
Yes,
so I just kind of wanted to ask, did I go over the time limit there when I was talking to Kyla? Do you think I have
not at all
anything you would improve there?
No, not at all. I think you had some ideas and questions. It's you seem like someone who has the has the courage to wear your mind on your sleeve, and I think that is virtuous. Be able to think out loud and try to, when you're asking your question, try to provide some detail as to where you believe your question's coming from, and trying to kind of expand on that. I think that was great.
Okay, good, because I just want to respect conversation etiquette is all.
Oh yeah. No, you're all good, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are some other things people cut out? I'm very impressed by Kyla. It's that was interesting. She has what seems to be by academic standards quite an exotic usage of the term dogma and dogmatism. If for anyone that's interested, you can look at the academic usages and the common usages of dogmatism. So that part was interesting. I do want to make sure that, and I do make sure that the kind of dogmatism I'm referring to is the kind that is attached to incontrovertible truth, things like truths that cannot be questioned or ought not be questioned or are impossible to be wrong. This is the kind of dogmatism I deal with in the first chapter of my book. But
I did actually look that up.
Yeah.
The usage in relation to the philosophical usage in relation to Agrippa's trilemma, and it says here, accepting some propositions as foundational, self-evident, so that they do not require further proof.
Right. Yeah. And really in and there, it might be a
slight difference.
Yeah, there might be an incoherence just between those fields, which completely is the case, and it's one of the reasons why I outline the particular usage of dogmatism I use when I'm referring to incontrovertible certainties. And it's just often when I talk to other philosophers, we are using the same usage of dogmatism, but that was a rare occurrence. So, and it was interesting, and it's not that she's wrong about her usage in that particular, with reference to that particular, trilemma.
That's why I specifically looked it up. Yeah.
Right.
Well, one thing about Kyla that like is obviously me and her don't align on like theological views, but like I was really drawn to her because of our political alignment. Because I find like when I hear her talk that she is like so aligned with me on just so many political topics that because I'm not there to the socialist like position yet that everybody on the left seems to be pushing. I just I'm more of we should have social programs, but I like my I like my liberal democracy and I like capitalism. I think it's in a way, but I like it to be regulated. So me and her are both aligned in all of that right there, and that's one reason why I was so. But yeah, like that, I wasn't drawn to her necessarily over her religious views, but she is definitely the kind of Christian that I prefer. Somebody who sees like her goal was being helpful to humanity and her fellow man and stuff. So,
what do you?
Those two things.
Yeah, go ahead, Simos. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, those two things aren't necessarily opposite, though, Robin. When you say liberal versus socialism, I mean liberalism and socialism are not opposites. So, I mean, certainly in Europe, they can be easily combined and are combined in most countries as part of the political system. So.
Yeah.
I know in America it's different, so I'm not saying that you're wrong or anything, but
yeah. See, like Leo was saying, like it's totally different. We have a totally different like system here, but
I didn't want to press her because after she said she was tired or whatever, I didn't want to press her too much, and I have a mute button on my mic, which is why I always leave it unmuted. But I was hoping that somebody were to ask her, because at some point she said that she is hoping to reach out to young men that are center to right wing or center to like center right. And I wanted to ask her why she thinks most young men have moved to the right, because I think Pearl is going to press her on that, because I think a lot of Pearl appeals to the right wing young men a lot.
Trey, can we fix your mic? Do you have your mic cranked or something? Because I'm trying to get a good level. Yeah, your level. What's that?
Better?
Oh, way better, way better.
I was holding it up. My bad.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Did you hear what I said or no?
I caught most of it,
That's
but
right.
my earphones were booming. Do you want to summarize, Simos? If you caught that?
well, he's basically saying that in the debate with Pearl, Pearl appeals to mostly centre-right young men, and so there could be some. That's probably the area that Pearl's going to attack Kyla's viewpoint from.
Gotcha.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Her view of the object of morality, she claims to have her moral realism. Very similar critique I always have with regards to this is like I see the moral subject, Kyla in this case, doing that same value sorting that I see all human beings doing with regards to trying to assess good, bad, right, and wrong in the world, and I just I lack to see the connection to any kind of moral facts written on the universe. I didn't get a chance, but she also appealed to a pattern, a coherent pattern she notices in behaviors throughout humanity. But like I always say to that, like I said to T-Jump, that we have really good empirical reasons to believe that this is this is evolutionary, that we have biological reasons empirically to point to that show us why in general the direction is towards higher levels of physical, mental, and social health, and why there are general things like, the example of when an elderly person falls over in almost all human societies that have ever lived, and certainly those that exist today. The good thing to do, the righteous thing to do, would be to go and help them off the ground. We have this empathetic impulse to do that, and then I think it's quite universally accepted that it would be a bad thing, a wrongful thing to just leave them there laying on the ground. So yeah, it's my same quibbling I always have with the moral realists, where I feel like the moral realists think they're doing something different than the moral anti-realists. But if we were to call upon our best cognitive scientific modeling, that would tell us that, what they're doing is no different than the moral anti-realist, the moral subjectivist. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the ideas
It amazes me when
develop there.
people read the Bible, though, especially the Old Testament, and they come up with the claim that like there's objective morality from God, because like first of all, his morality is somewhat varying even within that book, but his moral system seems to be in response to his bipolar nature.
Yeah.
Like or whatever his multi-personality disorder, or whatever is wrong with his brain. Like he's jealous, he's vengeful, he's wrathful, he's misogynistic. He's he kills babies and says don't kill. He doesn't ban sexual
demands
assault.
slaying of the Amalekites and the animals. And,
I don't understand if they just block that part of the book out, or how they come to decide that. I mean, even if he existed, he would still be just a subject. You know what I mean? And they would be choosing to follow his moral system, his subjective moral system. It still doesn't make it objective. I just don't see how they think it can be objective.
Right. And look, it's yeah, I mean, there's the problem of evil issues that we can quibble about all day, and then they're just going to argue, well, it's God's morality versus yours. Who do you think has the bigger D here? But I think like the fact that someone like Kyla is looking at the Bible, weighing it against like the cultural context she finds herself in, and ruminating on this and coming to her own conclusions. I'm glad she's doing that. That's what Christians should be doing, in my opinion. I love that. But I think it is direct evidence that she's engaging in the moral anti-real process like every other human being has in the history of mankind. The difference here is, I think, the object of the Bible, and also the faith in God, the belief that God actually exists and is the arbiter of good, bad, right, and wrong. That's going to cause someone to almost necessarily claim or believe that there are moral facts out there in the world. I'm not saying T-Jump, who we had on recently, is an example of someone who doesn't use God. He uses his own presupposition and things relating to consent. So I don't think you need God, but I think in this case with Kyla, it is very much made real by the faith in God, by the connection to God as the arbiter of good, bad, right, and wrong. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, and the fact that, similar also to Robin's point a minute ago, but the fact that we can notice in various religious structures that there's just a blatant sexism that occurs. And if you add that on to like the Catholic Church, obviously going through their their absurdities with child abuse and such, many decades ago, and things of that nature. And like the people who in the news today of various, denominations around the country, who all of a sudden a pastor comes out and it's like, oh, he gets arrested for child abuse and stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times,
the Southern Baptists had an issue too.
And a lot of time the congregates just, close their eyes or whatnot. It's like, dude, you can't, like, I know that you're trying to go a deep thing that is rooted in your family, your philosophy, your culture, your country's history, the pride you take in your traditions and your holiday celebrations and many things. Like, I love celebrating Christmas myself for various reasons, but there comes a point where it's like, I really liked how she responded to my question, just because it's like, hey, we have to acknowledge also that these ideas, like, religion to a certain degree doesn't say that women are equal to men. And that might be a bold claim on my part, but like, I'm willing to walk people through a discussion with that, to have a dialogue about where in history we have ample evidence for that.
Yeah. I think Brett, if based on the conversation I just had with Kyla, if she was here, I think she would think bad, likely, the things you also think bad about, and then that's where she would say, well, that's where the cultural context comes into play. A lot of these lessons we see, a lot of these fables, these stories, are happening within a particular kind of cultural context that for some reason in God's mind called for these things to be made explicit in that way. And that is, a reason why I think it's imperative for a Christian to do what Kyla is doing, to be able to say, like, obviously within our cultural context, that stuff is shit. But she would probably also say that, but I trust in the wisdom of God, in that there was something about goodness. There was something good in that was probably made necessary by God's dictation. And and look, I try my best to steel man that calculus the best I can. It's not, it's obviously, it doesn't make epistemic sense to me. I think it's just epistemically empty, but I understand the sentimentality at play there. The power behind God belief should not be ignored when we're trying to understand the nature of one's, let's say, moral realism. What I'm going to do is I think we're going to shut down for a quick break, and then we're going to fire up on our new live channel, folks. Let me just get a link for everyone, because everyone listening right now on YouTube, by the way, thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate it. We are going to move this over to our new Pangburn live channel, and we're probably going to have a new topic tonight. We'll do something fun over there, and I'm just going to give you guys the link so you know how to find it. Copy there. And
can I just end on a joke, maybe?
Yeah, of course. After I just encourage everyone, the link is right there to the new YouTube Pangburn live channel. Click it, make sure you subscribe, and we will be live over there a bit later tonight. But yeah, go ahead, Simos.
Well, I mean, you were talking about having a dick measuring competition with God, of course. And
Right.
I would just point out that especially someone here has at least demonstrated that they have one in the last 10 months, as opposed to what's happened in the last 2,000 years. So I'd say there's a win.
Yeah, well, Simos is, of course, referring to my new baby girl who is now here in the world, who I love dearly. And she's as light as a feather, and I have gigantic orangutan hands, and she fits just like this. And she is the most beautiful thing ever. And and my son is doing really well, getting used to helping with baby and things. So it's fantastic. I'm I'm very lucky. But yes, my D is apparently bigger and more apparent and lively than God's ever has been. So
Yeah.
anyways, thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Thank you. Special thanks to Kyla, NotSoErudite. It's going to be Kyla vs. Pearl, September 12th in New York City at Bronxlandia. After the debate, Bronxlandia will convert into kind of a nightclub setting. It's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys can join us in New York City in our new kind of home venue in New York. Thanks, everyone, and make sure you're maximizing well-being.